It's not uncommon for me to talk about shortages on this channel. Food shortages, water shortages, medicine shortages, all of it. Those things matter and they're real. In fact, we're seeing many examples of this in our world right now. When something disappears from the shelves or it doubles in price, people feel it right away. But there's another shortage happening that might be even bigger. Maybe you felt it, but you can't quite describe it. The real shortage right now is trust. Hey, I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. People don't trust the system like they used to. They don't trust the labels. They don't trust the companies behind the products. They don't trust that the government is going to catch every problem before it reaches their home. They don't trust that products coming from the other side of the world will always be available, affordable, or made to the standards that they expect. And now with AI getting better and better, a lot of people don't even trust what they see, what they read, or what they're being told. And once trust starts disappearing, preparedness starts to look different. Because preparedness is not just about having extra food on the shelf. It's not just about having water stored, batteries in a drawer, or a few emergency supplies in the closet. Those things matter, obviously, but real preparedness is also about reducing the number of things your family has to blindly trust and rely upon. And that's the part I keep coming back to. For a long time, most of us were taught to believe that if something was sold in a store, it was safe. If it had a nice label, it was probably honest. If it said natural or clean or family safe, we assumed that that meant something. If a big company made it, we assumed they had standards. And if something ever went really wrong, we assumed that someone in charge would catch it, recall it, regulate it, or at least warn us before it hurt anyone or worse. But I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that this isn't always how it works. Talc-based baby powder is one of those examples that changed the way a lot of people look at trust. For generations, families used it because it was on the shelf, it came from one of the most trusted names in America, and most of us assumed that if there were any serious concerns, the government would have already stepped in. But concerns about asbestos contamination in cosmetic talc had been raised with the FDA for decades. Johnson & Johnson began selling talc-based baby powder in 1894. And it wasn't until 2019 when the FDA testing found asbestos fibers in one lot of Johnson's baby powder and went public with its findings that a recall was issued. Johnson & Johnson continues to deny that its talc products were unsafe, yet they discontinued it globally in 2023, still 4 years after the FDA reports. I'm not trying to relitigate every lawsuit here. My point is simpler than that. The system is reactive and the corporations don't care about us. Sometimes the deeper safety conversations happen years after families have already trusted the products. Look at what's happening with things like Teflon, artificial dyes, trans fats, and things like that. And that's just one example, but it changed the way a lot of people think about trust. Because the issue is not just whether one product was good or bad. The bigger issue is that a product can be legal, popular, trusted, and used by families for generations, and still the deeper safety conversation may not happen until much later. These are things that were introduced to the market, sold to us as being safe, and then years or even decades later, now we're being told otherwise. What we need to keep in mind is with these huge corporations, their first responsibility is usually profit, shareholders, and staying competitive. That doesn't mean that every company is evil, but it does mean that we should stop pretending that their main priority is our family's health or our family's budget. The reality is, and this may be blunt, but they don't care about us. Government agencies can help to a certain degree, but they're often slow to react. They are overwhelmed, politicized, underfunded, or buried in bureaucracy. And when something happens, the official plan and the reality on the ground can be two very different things. When it comes to foreign supply and imports, when shipping gets disrupted, when countries start fighting, when ports get backed up, regular families feel it first. Suddenly something that you always bought is out of stock, more expensive, reformulated, or just not the same quality anymore. And now with AI layered on top of all of this, fake reviews, fake product photos, fake articles, it is getting harder and harder to know what's real, what's safe, and what is just designed to make us click buy now. It's hard to tell the difference between real and AI, and it is not getting any easier. I've even had a few people ask me if I am AI, which is an interesting question to be asked. How do you actually prove that you're real? Mr. Wicked Prepared wanted to include more bloopers and outtakes in my videos. I guess that would be one way to do it. Molybdenum. 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 I know not everyone loves sardines. I get it. But I know not everyone loves sardines. I get it. But from a preparedness standpoint, preparedness. Let me have a drink of water. I can't do this. Hey, I'm Jara with But I think if you watch enough of my videos, you're going to learn pretty quickly that I am most certainly not AI. And I will say, browsing around on YouTube, though, it is getting really difficult to know who and what to believe. Now, when it comes to the products that we buy and the food we eat, it's not just that people are worried about empty shelves. It's that even when the shelves are full, people are starting to wonder, do I actually trust what's on the shelves? This is a very different kind of shortage. As the years go by, we are seeing a shortage of options. The mega corporations of the world are gobbling up the independent brands and the smaller manufacturers, and they're leaving us with fewer and fewer choices. And they're leaving themselves with less competition. And when there's less competition, there's less incentive to make quality products. And soon it becomes just a race to the bottom to see which mega corporation can make the item cheapest. And I think a lot of you probably feel this too. You walk through the store, things just feel different. The prices are higher than ever. The packages are quietly becoming smaller, shrinkflation. The ingredients are harder to understand. The quality feels inconsistent. The brands you used to trust, they're getting bought out by bigger companies every day. Products that you used for years suddenly change. Something that used to feel simple, like buying groceries and household supplies, now feels like it requires hours of research. That is exhausting. It's exhausting to feel like you have to investigate every single thing you bring into your home. It's exhausting to wonder what is in your food, what is in your cleaners, in your personal care products, where it was made, who owns the company, whether the reviews are real, and whether the price is going to jump again next month. That's why I think that preparedness has to be broader than just shelf-stable food and water. Yes, food storage matters, and water matters a lot. Backup power matters. Heat, cooking, medicine, sanitation, communication, all of that is crucial. But I also think we need to talk about the everyday products that keep our homes running. And if preparedness is about protecting your family, then at some point the question can't just be, do I have enough? It also has to be, do I trust what I have? Do I trust what's in it? Do I trust who made it? And do I trust where it came from? These are not crazy questions anymore. I think they're responsible questions. Now, I want to be really clear about something because I know some of you have watched many of my videos over the years where I talk about Walmart deals or Dollar Tree finds or sales at the grocery store, ways to stretch your budget. And I still believe in that. I still shop at big stores. I still look for deals. I still think families should save money anywhere that they can. I'm not here to shame anybody for shopping where their budget allows them to shop. In fact, generally speaking, I am the last person that would ever choose to pay more for anything. Most people are trying to do the best they can with the money they have, and that's getting harder and harder to do. But I do think there's a difference between using big stores as a tool and relying on them. Using Walmart because there's a good deal on canned meat or pantry staples is one thing, but depending on a handful of giant retailers and giant corporations for almost every basic thing in your home is something entirely different. I am not saying never use the system. I'm saying don't let the system prey upon you. That is the distinction. And quite honestly, I think a lot of these companies use this lack of competition to drive sales. This is why we saw Colgate buy out Tom's of Maine, General Mills acquire Annie's Homegrown, Lily Sweets taken over by Hershey, Mrs. Meyer's scooped up by S.C. Johnson, Unilever just recently purchased Groones, as well as Dr. Squatch, and even more recently, they merged their food division with McCormick. In most of these deals, it comes down to money, but these big corporations have a lot of pull. They can make it tough on the little guys, and there have been stories that They aren't afraid to present these smaller businesses with an ultimatum. Sell the company and walk away, or find yourself in legal trouble, or even worse. They make it so difficult for those smaller brands to even exist. So most owners and founders decide to just take the money and get out while they can. This is how we end up with just a handful of companies controlling almost every product we buy these days. If you peel back the layers of the onion a little bit further, we're going to find the puppet masters in control, a very select group of shareholders in charge of almost everything. My point is, sometimes cheap is necessary. Sometimes cheap is the reason a family can stock up at all. But sometimes cheap has a hidden cost. Sometimes the product gets watered down. Sometimes the packaging shrinks. Sometimes the ingredients change. And that's where I've started to rethink some of the things in my own home. I am not perfect. I'm just trying to be more intentional about what I bring into my house and who I keep giving my money to over and over again. One of the quieter changes I've been making is moving more and more of our everyday household basics to a family-owned, American-made, non-toxic store. I'm going to have the information down below for anybody who wants to take a look at it. And I want to explain why I bring that up, because this is not about pretending that one store solves every problem. It definitely doesn't. It's not about pretending I'll never walk into a Walmart again, because I definitely will. It's not about telling you to replace everything in your house overnight. That would be overwhelming and very expensive, and I don't think most people need or want to do that. For me, it's simply about this. If I'm already buying some of these things like laundry soap, snacks, cleaners, personal care products, vitamins, all these other household basics, I'm already buying them every month, then why not move some of that spending towards a company that I feel better about? I guess the biggest reason would be cost, and that was my biggest fear, that to get better products, I'd be spending a lot more money. But the reality is I'm pretty much spending about the same amount, sometimes even less. So why not choose American-made when I can? Why not choose products with safer ingredients when I can? Why not support a family-owned company when I can? Why not have another source for the things that my family already uses instead of relying on those same big box shelves and the same corporate brands that everyone else is relying on? And that's just one layer. I don't want this to sound like the answer is one store, one company, or one perfect solution, because it's not. Rebuilding trust in your home has layers. Sometimes it means buying from a local farmer when you can. Sometimes it means growing a few herbs or greens at home yourself. And sometimes it means learning to make things at home for yourself. Sometimes it means supporting a smaller business, shopping closer to home, or choosing American-made when it makes sense. And yes, for me, one of those layers has been moving some of our normal household basics purchases to a company that I feel better about. But the bigger point is this: don't make one system your whole plan. And that feels like preparedness to me. Not dramatic preparedness, not bunker preparedness, just normal, practical, everyday preparedness. Over the years, for a lot of people, this channel has become a go-to of sorts for freeze-dried food and shelf-stable foods, and I don't take that lightly. I've gained a lot of experience in the industry, and I've tried a lot of different foods from a lot of different companies. I've also had the chance to work more closely with some of these companies, ask questions behind the scenes to learn how they operate, and kind of just get a better feel for who is just selling a product and who is actually trying to do things the right way. And that matters to me, because when I recommend something, I know that there's real families on the other side of the screen that are trusting my opinion. And I want you to feel like I've just done some of the digging for you, not because you should blindly trust anyone, including me, but because trust is built over time. It comes from consistency, honesty, experience, and being willing to tell the truth even when something isn't perfect. So when I say I trust a company, or when I choose to bring a product into my own home, that trust has been earned over time. And my goal is to pass that along in a way that helps you make decisions for your own family. Because every product you already buy is either keeping you tied to the same system, or it's giving you a chance to build something a little better and a little safer inside your home. And I don't think this needs to be extreme. You don't have to throw everything away and start over. Just start noticing. Start with one category. Maybe it's your laundry. Maybe it's your dish soap. Maybe it's toothpaste, your makeup, your supplements, maybe whatever product you already feel unsure about. Look at it and ask yourself, Do I trust this? Do I feel good using this around my family? Do I know where it comes from? And is there a better option? That's how you make this manageable. And honestly, that's how most preparedness works anyways. You don't fix everything all at once. You notice a weak spot and you strengthen it. Then you notice another weak spot and you strengthen that one too. And then over time, your home becomes less fragile. That's the goal. Less fragile, less dependent, less blind trust. And I think that matters even more when you look at the government side of this. Again, I am not trying to turn this into a political rant. I know people have different opinions. That is totally fine. But one thing I think most prepared-minded people can agree on is this. I don't want the government to be my family's first line of defense. When I talk about not putting blind trust in the government, I'm talking about the quiet assumption that most of us grew up with, which is that if a product is being sold to the public, someone must have fully checked it out first. We assume the ingredients were reviewed, the safety concerns were caught, the labels are clear, and the companies would not be allowed to sell something questionable. But the reality is, a lot of the time the system is reactive. Problems are discovered after people complain, after independent testing, after lawsuits, after health concerns, after contamination, after the recall, or after years of people using the product. And that does not mean that every product is dangerous, but it does mean that the shelf itself is not a guarantee. A product being legal, available, and widely sold is not the same thing as that product being something that I want in my home. And that's where preparedness becomes personal responsibility. I can still appreciate that regulations exist. I can still be thankful for recalls when they happen. But I do not want my family's standards to be whatever barely clears the lowest legal bar. I want to be more intentional than that. I want to ask better questions before something becomes a headline, before the recall notice goes out, before the company quietly changes the formula, before we all find out years later that people had concerns all along. That is not about living in fear. It's about realizing that no agency, no corporation, and no label on the front of a bottle cares about my home as much as I do. So if I want a home that I can trust, I have to take some responsibility for what comes into it. And that's where trust comes back into the picture again, because the more you trust yourself, your home, your supplies, your routines, and your backup plans, the less panic you feel when the outside world gets weird. That's one of the biggest benefits of preparedness that people don't talk about enough. Preparedness doesn't just give you stuff, it gives you calm. When everybody else is rushing, you can slow down. When everyone else is confused, you can think clearly. And when everybody else is hoping the shelves stay full, you already have options. When everybody else is waiting for answers, you already know your next step. That is the kind of trust we need to rebuild. Not blind trust in corporations, not blind trust in government, not blind trust in labels, not blind trust in supply chains, not blind trust in AI-generated reviews or marketing claims. Real trust, the kind you build yourself. And this is also why I think foreign supply chains are worth talking about carefully. I'm not saying that every product made in another country is bad. That would be ridiculous. We all own things from all over the world. It's just the reality of modern life. Even the device that you are watching this on right now, this video, if the entire thing wasn't made overseas, then components of it definitely were. But I do think we've become too comfortable depending on faraway systems for the basic things that our families use every day. When everything is calm, it feels different. It feels cheap, it feels normal. But when something interrupts that system, we suddenly realize how little control we actually have. That's going on with fertilizer right now. As I record this video, a factory shuts down somewhere else, a product disappears here. Shipping costs rise somewhere else, and our prices jump here. A conflict starts somewhere else, and suddenly ingredients, packaging, fuel, fertilizer, medicine, electronics, household goods, all of that becomes harder to get and more expensive to buy. And that's not a theory. That is how connected everything is right now. And that doesn't mean that we can disconnect from the whole world. We really can't. But it does mean that we should value shorter supply chains when we can. We should value American made when we can. We should value companies that are easier to understand, easier to contact, and more aligned with what we want in our homes. Again, not perfection, direction. And the same thing is true with AI. AI is not going away. And some of it's useful, some of it's very impressive, and some of it saves time, but it also makes discernment more important than ever because we're entering a time when fake can look very, very real. A product can have beautiful photos that were AI generated. A review can sound like a real person, but it can be totally fake. A website can look professional and still be very questionable. Being able to pause, question, verify, compare, and think clearly is part of taking care of your family. It is not enough to just ask, is this available? We have to ask, is this real? Is this safe? Is this trustworthy? And I think that's why so many people are tired. We are tired of researching everything. We're tired of labels that mean almost nothing. We're tired of prices going up while quality goes down. We're tired of trying to figure out who owns what, where things are made, what ingredients matter, and whether we are being told the full story. That exhaustion is real. And that's why building a home that you trust is so powerful. A home you trust does not mean a perfect home. It doesn't mean you never buy something cheap. It just means you're paying attention. It means your pantry makes sense to you. Your water plan makes sense. Your household supplies make sense. Do your research, don't follow the hype. And over time, that builds confidence. You stop feeling like your whole home depends on corporations that you don't trust, labels you can't understand, government systems you can't control, foreign supply chains that you can't see, and online information that you cannot verify. You start taking ownership again. That's the heart of this video. The real shortage is trust, but the answer is not panic. The answer is ownership. Own what you can. Question what deserves to be questioned. Build backups where you can. Choose better sources whenever you can. Stop assuming that every product on the shelf deserves a place in your home just because it's available. Availability is not the same thing as trust. And I think that's a hard lesson that a lot of people are learning right now. So here's what I would encourage you to do this week. Walk through your home with fresh eyes. Don't make it complicated. Don't make a giant list of everything you need to change. Just look around and notice. Open your pantry and ask, do I have food that I actually trust and I know how to use? Look at your water and ask, if something happened, would we be okay for a few days? Look under your sink and ask yourself, do I feel good about these products that are being used around my family? Or am I cleaning with toxic chemicals and making things worse? Look in your laundry room and ask, do I trust what is going onto our clothes and our towels every day? Fabric that's going to be in contact with our skin 24 hours a day. Look in your bathroom and ask, are these products here because I chose them or because I just never questioned them? That one question can change a lot. Make one better switch. Build one backup. Find one better source. Replace one product that you already felt kind of uneasy about. Stock one extra item that your family actually uses. Read one label. Ask one better question. That is how you start rebuilding trust inside your home. Because the world is probably not going to get simpler anytime soon. Supply chains are not going to become less complicated. The corporations are not going to become less powerful. The labels are not going to magically become clearer. So we have to build homes that are more stable than the world around them. That doesn't happen overnight. It happens one decision at a time. And if you want to see the American-made, family-owned, non-toxic store that I mentioned earlier, I'll have the information down below. Again, I'm not saying you have to change everything. I'm just saying that if you're already buying these everyday basics anyways, it might be worth looking at whether there's a better way to buy them without added cost. For me, it's just become one more layer of preparedness because at the end of the day, nobody cares more about your family's stability than you do. Not the corporations, not the government, not the algorithms. You're the one who has to live with what comes into your home. You're the one who has to feed your family, clean your counters, stretch your budget, make the decisions, and deal with it when the system disappoints you. If this made you think about your own home differently and you watched it all the way to the end, leave me a heart emoji in the comments. I want to know how many of you are feeling this too. And if you want to keep building a home that's more prepared, more practical, and a little less dependent on the system, make sure you're subscribed and then check out this video next. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.